International Peace Research Institute says earnings fell about 10% last year as corruption crackdowns slowed arms contracts and delayed procurement. The decline stands out as global defense companies saw strong growth driven by the wars in Ukraine and Gaza and rising regional tensions. But in China, major state-owned giants like AVIC, Norinco, and CASC all reported losses, with Norinco hit hardest, down more than 30%. The slowdown follows a sweeping corruption purge that reached the top of the People's Liberation Army, including the Rocket Force. Analysts say the delays could affect timelines for China's new missiles, aircraft, as well as cyber programs. But they add that in the long run, Beijing's investment in military modernization is expected to continue. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Tomohiko Taniguchi. He's a former advisor to late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Taniguchi, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, how might this recent corruption purge within PLA and state-owned defense conglomerates reshape China's civil-military relations and central leadership's control over the military industry complex?
First of all, the statistics, the report came from Sipri, Sweden Institute of Peace Research Institute. That's very much authoritative, well-respected institution. So I think the plunge of the amount of defense procurement in the case of Chinese contractors would be real. And then it may reflect two things. One, the plunge reflects the amount of money corrupt. So that's number one. Number two, even though this is a serious plunge, I think it's going to be a one-off event and short-term event. Mid to long-term Chinese defense buildup is going to gain momentum even further. So for the Chinese Communist Party and the PLA, corruption is important insofar as it would affect the might and power of PLA per se. The most important thing for the PLA and the Chinese Communist Party would be to keep on strengthening the power and might of the Chinese military.
And what strategic risks does the slowdown, although you said it could be temporary, defense procurement pose for China's, particularly Xi's, near-term military modernization goals?
Bear in mind, because you're looking at a combination of a huge amount of money in the first place, no transparency, no accountability, second, and there is a hierarchical structure because it is military and the Chinese Communist Party. It's going to be hugely difficult for the corruption to be eradicated for the Chinese, and that trend is going to continue. But the bigger trend is, despite these corrupt cases, as I said, the Chinese military buildup is going to be continuing as it has for the last 20, 30 years.
Right, and given that global defense spending is accelerating, how should Beijing recalibrate its defense industry policies to maintain competitiveness without compromising anti-corruption efforts?
One can say the Chinese military is on the cutting edge. Its technological prowess is second to none already, and the gap between the fleets China has and the fleets the combination of the United States and Japan and Australia have are widening. So I don't think the Chinese military officials and the top-ranking officials of the Chinese Communist Party are that much concerned about the plunge of the amount of defense procurement and the corruption that should very well be behind the corruption.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Dr. Taniguchi for sharing that insight and expertise with us. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now moving on to Taiwan, flying over the waters off of Taiwan's east coast, a light aircraft equipped with a powerful US-made radar tracks Chinese warships, collecting data its operator is keen to provide to Taipei's security forces. Small Taiwanese operator Apex Aviation is pitching the surveillance flights to a government that has started engaging civilian firms in developing new technologies for its whole of society resilience initiatives. The Taiwanese government has invited businesses, research groups, and other organizations to take on more active roles, including backing up communications and logistics, shoring up cyber defenses, and potentially contributing to surveillance and intelligence gathering. While common in countries such as the United States, this joint military-civilian approach is new for Taiwan, whose armed forces are increasingly hard-pressed responding to daily Chinese incursions in the skies and waters around the island. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Dr. Tomohiko Taniguchi. He's a former advisor to late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Taniguchi, for staying with us. Thank you. Now looking at this, how might Taiwan's growing reliance on civilian military cooperation for surveillance and also resilience, how do you think this influences Japan's own defense planning?
Well, not immediately. The situation in Japan is there is absolutely no interplay between the civilian sector and the Japanese armed forces. But to make a good interconnectedness between the civilian and the military would be of grave interest and grave necessity for Taiwan. Why? Because information intelligence are all about network, and if you have a network effect, then it means that Taiwan has chronically suffered from the lack of the network effect. So to maximize in its own way, the Taiwanese must seek the greater economy of scope by allying with civilian sectors other than the military sector. In the case of Japan, the United States, Australia, the Philippines, they can share intelligence, they can share data among themselves, which is something that the Taiwanese military could not possibly do. So I think it's to serve to enhance the economy of scale and scope, but at the same time it's to make an alarming signal to the Taiwanese people. Don't be complacent. The Chinese are flexing their muscle, so be alarmed. So that's the sort of message that President Lai wants to tell to the Taiwanese. Indeed, the whole of society approach has a signature of the president.
Right. And what opportunities or risks does Taiwan's integration of private sector intelligence and surveillance capabilities create for Japan-Taiwan security coordination?
Well, Japan-Taiwan security coordination, I, for one, think should be enhanced. But the degree of such a cooperation is minimal at the moment. So no matter what one of the small civilian aircraft companies does or does not in Taiwan with the military forces of Taiwan, it would not affect that much, like it or not, the thinking process of the Japanese defense planners. But at the same time, more broadly, there must be better communications, better sharing of information and intelligence in a creative way between Taiwan and Japan, or among Taiwan, Japan, the Philippines, Australia, and so forth. It's easy to be said, but very much hard to be done, because the Chinese are going to coerce in any way Taiwan and the Philippines, Japan, and so on, if those countries would be engaged in sharing intelligence and information more into the future.
And building on your answer, Dr. Taniguchi, as you mentioned that better communication is necessary and intelligence sharing is very important. But slow, do you think Taiwan is slow in progressing and integrating reliance on civilian military cooperation? Do you think it can resist Chinese curbs or Chinese these kind of surveillance attacks on East China Sea near Taiwan and amid increasing tensions in East China Sea?
Which is the reason why the whole of society approach should gain even more salience and importance for the Taiwanese people. You're looking at a behemoth in your neighborhood, which is China, and there is going to be no match between Taiwan and China. So the Taiwanese can still do much, much more in engaging people of all kinds, companies of all kinds. Some might remember that when Falkland War erupted, Margaret Thatcher's government, Margaret Thatcher called upon private companies to do their utmost. Responding to that call, Peninsula and Orient P&O and BOAC, now BA, have provided aircraft and ships and so on with the UK's military. So Taiwan should read the playbook of Margaret Thatcher.
Right. And lastly, Dr. Taniguchi, what challenges does Taiwan's whole of society defense model create for democratic oversight, national security and planning for Taiwan?
Certainly, Taiwan is a proud democracy. Open and accountability would be very much important for anything to be conducted. But the most important thing, the first, second, and third most important thing for Taiwan is to maintain its security. Everything else is secondary.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Dr. Tomohiko Taniguchi for joining us today from Tokyo and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we stay in China.